Hi everybody, this is David, and Limited Run Games just had this massive, blockbuster gaming showcase. A lot of the times whenever Limited Run Games does any kind of announcements and stuff, I don't really pay all that much attention, but this time's different, because not only are they going back to much older games that we haven't seen in 20 plus years, but they're also releasing brand new games that we will never see on any other platform, and games that are being released even back on the Game Boy Advance and stuff. This is a kind of weird showcase, but I really want to go over some of these must-have games. So here are 7 must-have games that they announced at that limited run showcase out of 20 plus games. They had a bunch. And first up here is the Castlevania Advance collection. These are Circle of the Moon, Harmony of Dissonance, Aria of Sorrow, and Dracula X. And these were released back on the Game Boy Advance, obviously. And I know Dracula X, I think, was also on the SNES. I'm pretty sure. Maybe it was the Sega Saturn. I don't know. I haven't really kept up with Castlevania all that much ever since I got to the PS1 era, and I pretty much went straight RPG. But Castlevania was one of my favorites growing up. And these are almost like Metroidvanias too, which is another genre that I really do like. I like JRPGs and I like Metroidvanias, and that's about it. And this is going to be coming out for the Switch as well as the PS4, and you can start your pre-orders on July 28th. And it's 4 games in one, and you get it physically. To me, this is a no-brainer. Next up, we have Shantae Advanced Risky Revolution. Now, the first Shantae was released actually on the Game Boy Color, but it didn't really sell all that well, and they had planned a Game Boy Advance sequel to it called Risky Revolution. And they went around, they shopped around, they had this demo created and all that kind of stuff, but nobody wanted it because the first game didn't sell all that well, even though, it was kind of amazing. So one of our people kind of got the cult, and they figured out that the first game was great. They went ahead and they released Risky's Revenge. But this game was just kind of lost in the shuffle, but they still have all the code for it, they still have everything, so this is actually going to be the lost sequel to the first Shantae game, and it's going to be released on the Game Boy Advance. It's getting a Game Boy Advance cart, and it's getting link cable support too. What? It's just so weird. It's probably also going to come to more modern platforms too. I mean, that to me seems like duh. At least the Switch, I would imagine. But they haven't announced anything else except that it is coming to the Game Boy Advance, and you can start your pre-orders in September. Next up, we have Dungeons of Aether. Whenever I first saw this, I was like, oh, I don't know, but then I was like, you know what, this actually looks kind of cool. And I looked up reviews, because it's already on the eShop, as well as the PC, the Switch eShop. And it actually has some pretty good reviews, and it's I don't know, $10, $12 over there, so it's not that much money. And if you like it, you can now get it physically. Pre-orders open on July 14th. It is a 2D dungeon crawler with SNES style graphics, but it also has turn-based battles, as you can see. It looks pretty neat, it looks pretty unique, it just looks, obviously it has good pedigree behind it because the reviews on it are so good. Then there's this. I'm like, what? I just had to bring this up. This is called Arzet, the Jewel of Faramore, and it is a Zelda CDI. Yeah, those. It's a Zelda CDI-inspired game using, Microsoft Paint for the graphics or something. It's just what? These games are, such a freaking joke, but, why would they kind of go back to this style? I guess it is nostalgic if you were one of the 2 kids who actually had a CDI, you know what I mean? But I think that everybody nowadays has kind of played those games, or they know about those CDI games, and this one I don't think is going to copy the jank of the Zelda CDI, but it's going to copy that inspiration of the Zelda CDI, and it's coming out for the Nintendo Switch, PS4, PS5, Xbox, and PC in 2023. No real release date yet. Next up, we have This Way Madness Lies, which is one of those Zeboid games. This one is Shakespearean inspired. It was marketed to be a very short game, a game that you can beat in one day, and believe me, I've played it. you can. It's already on the PC, but now it is getting a PS5 physical release. I believe it's also on the Nintendo Switch, and it said that it's available digitally on the Switch. It didn't say if it's going to get a Switch physical, but I would imagine that it would. It just seems kind of unusual. Anyway, if you like Shakespeare or Magical Girls, Sailor Moon, turn-based traditional JRPGs, you should probably look this one up. And now for like the standout of this showcase. This one's called Another Crusade, and it is a Super Mario RPG inspired game, and you can really see that inspiration in these battle scenes. It's absolutely beautiful, but I've got to say this. If this was announced maybe a week or two ago, I think that everybody would be losing their freaking minds. But, as we all know, Nintendo literally just announced a Super Mario RPG real remake or remaster or whatever they're going to do with it. I would assume it's a remake because they're changing the battle system. But anyway, so they are putting some changes into the game, but I think that people would be losing their minds about this if that wasn't announced. So I hope that that doesn't steal this game's thunder, and I hope that it does sell well, because something like this is something that the JRPG community needs. We need to be going back to these classic 2D turn-based games of my childhood, these games that really built the genre from the ground up, these games that I just really enjoy and love. So I do hope that it sells well. It's coming out this fall, or at least you can start the pre-orders this fall. Another thing, and I went and looked this up because they didn't talk about this during the showcase, which I'm shocked about, but guess what, y'all? This has a demo over on the Steam that you can download and play, and your boy is gonna definitely be downloading it today and playing it today to write a review that should be coming out really freaking shortly, because this looks like to die for. And our final game that we want to go over is Clock Tower. I knew of this game because I first played it back on the SNES. It wasn't released here in America. It was released on the Super Famicom over in Japan. But it did get a translation patch whenever I was in college or something, and it was listed on Game FAQs as an RPG. So I'm like, oh, awesome, this is great, it's gonna be, a brand new RPG coming out. So I downloaded the patch, downloaded the ROM, went to play it, and I'm like, ugh, what the hell is this? You play as this girl, and she's getting chased by this psychotic scissor man guy, but you have no powers, and it's point and clicky, kind of like Maniac Mansion, and I hated Maniac Mansion back on the NES, and I maybe played 10 minutes of this thinking oh, maybe the RPG stuff will come in to play somehow, but it never did. It's just not my thing. It's survival horror, and I've said this before a million times. I like bright, funny, colorful, upbeat JRPGs, not oh my god, this mass murderer is chasing me and going to kill me RPGs. That's just not my thing. But I did want to bring it up to y'all because it's just neat. It's just really freaking cool. And I know a lot of y'all out there might be into something like this, so I did want to bring it to y'all's attention. It's coming out early next year for the Switch, PS4 and 5, Xbox, and PC. So if this is up your alley, be sure to go over to Limited Run and check out these games. By the way, I'm not getting any kind of kickbacks or anything from this before people come yelling at me in the comments, because they always do. It's ridiculous. Sometimes I just like to bring stuff to y'all's attention. God forbid. Anyway, let me know what games you're most excited about. Let me know what you think about all these games. And as always, have a good day.